Good evening, dear friends. You are welcome to WStv as always. Today is International Women's Day, and there can be no moment more opportune than this for discourse on issues related to gender equality and justice. Gender justice. At a glance upon the modern history, we would see that the Industrial Revolution taking off in late 18th century Europe and alongside US had triggered enormous democratic aspirations among the masses, including and especially its oppressed half, the women. The ruling bourgeoisie that came to power in 19th century Europe and the US, however, presented only a half-hearted answer to the medieval oppression of women, still refusing to impart equal rights to them. Banner was thus to be raised to challenge the gender based social inequality and thus take the revolution forward against the new ruling elite in all countries of capitalism around the globe. Interested only in limited struggle for securing gender rights within the confines of capitalism, the bourgeois women raised the banner of identity based feminism, limiting their challenge thus to male hegemony and patriarchy, often demonizing men and not the capitalist order itself. For proletarian women, the question was, however, altogether different, and that was the complete overthrow of all existing conditions, social conditions, political conditions, everything, the existing order itself. The two banners thus frequently clashed on women question. At the opening of 20th century, Marxism secured a clear advance upon feminism. Marxists like Rosa Luxemburg, Clara Zetkin, Elanor Marx, Inessa Armand, Krupskaya and Alexandra Kollontai counterposed Marxism against feminism, and they clearly did it and opposed any attempt to reconcile them with each other. They opposed the demonization of men by feminists that, despite all claims to the contrary, was at the heart of most of the strands of feminism. Marxists instead appealed for a proletarian revolution as surest pathway to overcome the gender inequalities, becoming the frontline fighters for women cause. Marxists championed it and secured complete victory for Marxism on women's front. Marxism revealed its inherent feminist tenets thus. Soon, Marxist movement was to find political embodiment of its cherished goals and ideals in the socialist revolution of October 1917 that declared and established complete equality between men and women. International Women's Day was declared a holiday in Soviet Union, and that few of us know. Lenin and Trotsky, the twin leaders of the October Revolution, they both viewed women as a great social force, previously untapped, and encouraged women to participate in the revolution and societal affairs that included political affairs, affairs of the political state. Lenin had written, petty housework, I'm quoting Lenin, petty housework crushes, strangles, stultifies, and degrades the woman chains her to the kitchen and to the nursery, and wastes her labor on barbarously unproductive, petty, nerve-wracking, stultifying, and crushing drudgery. So Lenin was ardent supporter of liberation of women. Trotsky dedicated a whole book to family question, focused around women liberation, besides many articles and speeches on the same subject. Bolsheviks aimed to free women economically from men, and this meant, above all, creating conditions for and encouraging women to enter the workforce and politics, especially the state affairs. The number of women who entered the workforce thus rose quickly to 4,23,200 in 1923 itself and 8,85,000 in 1930s, at the start of 1930s. And this was a big achievement of Soviet Union, of October Revolution. The Bolshevik government under Lenin and Trotsky issued the first family code in October 1918. This code separated marriage from the church, allowed couples to choose surnames, decriminalized homosexuality, gave illegitimate children the same rights as legitimate children, gave rights to maternal entitlements in contraposition to paternal ones, ensured health and safety protections at work, and provided women with the right to divorce on far extended grounds that included, for the first time in the world, a no fault or irretrievable breakdown of marriage. So the irretrievable breakdown theory that was first applied by Soviet state, and that too more than 100 years before, and grant of divorce. The Soviet government also became the first government in the world to legalize abortion and provide free abortion services in state hospitals in 1920s. In 1922, marital rape was made illegal in the Soviet Union. Community kitchens started by Soviet government liberated women from menial kitchen jobs. The kindergartens were started at state expense in order to free women from childcare. Labor laws were designed to assist women. Women were given an 8-week paid maternity leave, equal wage for equal work, a minimum wage standard, equal rights in regard to insurance in case of illness, paid holiday, leave, etc., etc. There were so many benefits that were imparted to women first time in the world. West later had only followed it. It was clear and radical break from the Tsarist past, an advance upon the advanced West itself. Bolshevik government not only enacted the laws for women, but to ensure and oversee their implementation, the Bolshevik Party set up a specialist women's department, the all-powerful Chenodel, in 1919. So immediately after the revolution, in October 1917, revolution had taken place and Genotel was formed in 1919, early 1919. The Bolsheviks also established women's Soviets, Gen Soviet, to cater to and support women. Radicalization of women witnessed a huge spurt in divorces and breakdown of traditional family. In 1925, the Genotel created the second family plan, recognizing through a radical common law the marital relationship for live-in couples. In 1926 marriage law, the government recognized de facto marriages and granted registered and unregistered marriages equal status, coupled with very same obligations. As in late 20s, Stalinists secured victory inside the Soviet Union, the Thermidorian Kremlin bureaucracy started to dismantle the revolution and liquidate all gains that were previously secured on women front, among others. Joseph Stalin disbanded the Zenotdel in 1930, claiming that its need was over, and it was obviously a false claim. The women's section of the Executive Committee of Communist International was also disbanded in the same way. Abortion and homosexuality were then outlawed, and not only outlawed but were penalized by law. Legal differences between legitimate and illegitimate children were restored, and divorce once again was made quite difficult. So the revolution was reversed, and all the gains that women's movement has secured through Soviet Revolution, through October Revolution, they all were reversed. They were abrogated by Stalinist bureaucracy. In 1930s, when women were entering the workforce on a huge scale, there was a U-turn in government policy to traditional and conservative values. We can say the Victorian values in many areas of social and family policy. At the climax of this reversal of revolutionary gains on women front, there appeared the 1936 Constitution, exhorting to increase productivity and improve quality of work. The 1936 Soviet Constitution relegated the women back to home to become heroines of the home. We are repeating the words of Stalin, heroines of the home, to make sacrifices for their husbands and create a positive life. Positive life, in the words of Stalin, positive life at home. Women were obliged to hold the social responsibility of motherhood that could not be ignored. These were the words of Stalinists. The nuclear family became the driving force of the time. 1940s continued with this counter-revolutionary program and ideology, and the offensive that was opened against the revolution under Stalin's bureaucracy. Many top Marxist jurists of Lenin-Trotsky era of 1920s, like Yevgeny Pashukanis and Nikolai Krylenko, who were instrumental in enacting the pro-women laws, were arrested and shot dead by Stalin during the Great Purges. Women and their cause were the first casualty of this repression. During the Stalinist era, that we can say spans over 1927 to 1953, lots of women activists fell victim to the Stalin's purges aimed at undermining the revolution, abrogating the revolution itself. In 5 years, between 1934 to 1940, the number of women imprisoned in the gulags rose from 30,108 to 108,898. They were sent to camps, mostly having textile and sewing factories, and were forced to perform hard labor as punishment. Women in the camps were often subjects of violence and sexual abuse. At the same time, the official movement that was launched under Stalin's regime and was named Thank You Literature, was organized by Kremlin with sole motive to promote the personality cult of Stalin. Articles in official women's magazine would praise Stalin for the work that he did for women, and in fact, that he never did. All independent organizations of women were outlawed and suppressed by force. During the Soviet Union's participation in World War II, that is between 1941 and 45, Stalinist regime turned to women for a short time, but only to use them as cannon fodder to exemplify the appeals to motherland and patriotism. Around 8,476 women were drafted into the Red Army or the Soviet Navy to make them the cannon fodder serving at the war front. The reversed motto for the time being was Soviet women give all their strength to the motherland. No difficulties arising on the path to build peace may frighten them, and it was a maneuver to make them cannon fodder on the war front. As men were drafted for front, women stepped in to take charge of family sustenance through work in the state or collective farms. Soviet women not only assumed roles in industry and agriculture, but by 1942 they made up over half of the agriculture labor force itself. In the villages, in the rural side, huge number of them became widowed and impoverished during the war, but for no concern to the regime under Stalin. Only after Stalin's death in March 1953, the Soviet government in 1955 revoked the 1936 laws, the anti-women laws, repealing the ban on abortion and legalizing it after almost 20 years of prohibition. Even the 1977 Soviet constitution contained a contradiction in terms. On the one hand, it supported women's rights, both in public life, by virtue of Article 35 of the Constitution, and in family life, under Article 53 of the Constitution, the right to education in the workforce and in the family. It emphasized motherhood as the essential and pivotal calling of women. Nominal state benefit programs for women continued through this era, Stalinist era, up to 1991. However, women were predominantly employed in the economic sectors where pay was very low, and they continued to receive less pay than men for comparable positions. Even the law, equal pay for equal work, did not stop the employment of women mainly in low paid sectors and discrimination in pay and salaries with their male counterparts. It was obvious the program of community living that was started by the Bolshevik regime under Lenin and Trotsky on a very large scale was totally dismantled, and the private flat system for nuclear family was restored under Stalinist regime. Soviet Union under Stalinists thus lagged behind even the capitalist Europe and the US on women's front. Stalinism virtually vulgarized Marxism by detaching women question from it. This detachment degraded the image of Marxism in the estimation of the women and youth over the globe, leaving a huge void on women front. This void in turn provided an opportunity to bourgeois feminism to reclaim its lost space against Marxism. Some of its strands presented themselves as alternatives to Marxism, often openly hostile to it, while others, masquerading under radical feminism and Marxist feminism, etc., attempted to adapt to Marxism, claiming themselves as gender supplement to it. In doing this, they in fact were adapting themselves to vulgarism of Stalinist regime and its counterfeit Marxism. In turn, adherents of Stalinism accepted feminism as gender supplement to Marxism. It was thus a mutual embrace between the two, Stalinism and feminism, as supplements to each other. From the historic timeline, one can thus clearly discern how rejuvenation of strands of feminism is closely bound up with bureaucratic degeneration of October Revolution under Stalinists and Stalinist regime. Since the movement of suffragettes, feminism has degenerated into low to advocacy of the most rotten market practices like fashion shows, prostitution, and even porn. Despite all demagogy, feminism finally keeps the women bound to capitalism by subordinating them to bourgeois ideology. Here, we must be clear that even so-called Marxist feminism is merely a variant of feminism, not of Marxism. There can't be anything like Marxist feminism. It is anti-Marxist attempt to combine the two antagonistic viewpoints, one bourgeois and other socialist viewpoint. Marxism is a holistic worldview, intrinsically hostile to patriarchy, male hegemony, domination, and oppression of women. If not, then it would not even qualify as a revolutionary theory. It does not therefore need any supplement or qualification from outside. With this, I appreciate you, my viewers and friends, for the patient hearing you have given to this talk. We'll meet you in the next telecast. Bye for now. Thank you all. Thank you very much.